Hello, folks. Molly here with the Say It Skillfully Ask Me Anything live stream. I'm here to help you make what's hard to say easier and more human by bringing clarity, compassion, and structure to those messy conversations. And I am super charged up about my co host today, a Thinkers 50 Hall of Fame member, the only 2 times #1 leadership thinker in the world, and for many years ranked the #1 executive coach in the world, and the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers, selling over 4 million books. Okay, yay! Marshall, thank you for joining me today.
And my co-author with the wonderful Molly on our new book, Say It Skillfully, which I love.
Yay, thank you. It's been such a joy to have you alongside me. And so people talk about it, writing a book. It's so tough. It's this, it's that. My experience was mostly joyous thanks to you, because I really felt like I was learning and making new mistakes, if anything. So I'm really grateful for that. So today, I thought this was a very apropos topic because of the many things I've learned from you, Marshall. This letting go. I don't know. How many times do you think you've made this motion with people in your life? I'm
Thousands.
serious. Thousands.
Multiple times already this morning.
Yes. And so I think it's easy for people to say. I was playing tennis earlier in the week, and I thought, you can make a mistake, you got to let it go. It applies broadly in our life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easy to say, and you've worked with some very senior people. So I just love to help our audience learn some ways that you've seen people can actually do it. It's easy to say it, but how do we do it?
Well, I think how you do it, I'm very, very fortunate because my mentor, one of my mentors was Peter Drucker, so you don't get much better than that. Although I've been ranked #1 leadership thing in the world, no offense to me, my brain compared to him was that of a 10-year-old. So that guy was smart. Well, one of the things he taught me led to this. Let me review it slowly. Our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to be smart or right or prove how smart or right we are. 2, every decision in the world is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. And if I need to influence you, Molly, and you have the power to make the decision, there's one word to describe you. That word is called customer. And there's one word to describe me. That is called salesperson. And customers do not have to buy. Salespeople have to sell. And Peter Drucker then said, you change what you can change. You sell what you can sell. If you can't sell it and you can't change it, you take a deep breath, let it go. Don't waste your life on what you are not going to change. Invest your life where you can make a positive difference. So few people ever get this point.
So, Marshall, for the leaders who get it right away, and you had a few that just internalize it, which is fabulous. For the ones that it's just sort of dug in and they really have a challenge, and I'm sure many of us can relate to this, right? Because we know what we should be doing, but we're not. What are some things that you've done? I mean, are you just punch them through the face, or how do you
You have
get
to just
people?
keep going back to this. Because to me, it's not a matter of I get it and my life has changed for eternity. Some of the people I'm working with, I've coached for years. Like one guy, I'd coached him 2 or 3 years. I was with Alan Mulally, my good friend who contributed to our book, right? He goes to the board of directors and he says, I want this person to be the CFO. The board 10-0 says, we do not want this person, bad choice, not going to be the CEO. He then says, well, I'm going to call each of you individually and have a discussion to explain why I disagree with you. Right. So then Alan and I go talk to him. We said, well, now the board did meet after you left without you, and they agreed that there is confusion. There is confusion, yet they do not feel they are confused. They have determined that indeed you are confused, and they want us to tell you that you see, actually, they don't report to you, you report to them. And you seem to have forgotten this. They don't own the company, but they are the elected representatives of the ownership of the corporation. And so I talked to him. I said, and Alan and I both are laughing. We said, yeah, you're going to call them one at a time and apologize. 10 smart people who are very smart, and your bosses made a decision. 10 out of 10. And somebody's confused, it's not them. So you'd be shocked how much of my life has been having this dialogue with people. Let it go. Move on, man. And he did, by the way. He did call him. He did apologize. It all worked. He's a great guy. And, I'm sure the board of directors say, man, that Marshall Goldsmith, what a coach. What a guy he is. We had a problem. He gets involved, problem one.
Yeah. I think this is, one of the things, and I think it would be really helpful for the audience just to understand maybe how your reputation as executive coach. I mean, I know you as, light and generous, and it's all happy, and it's rarely this, but I sense that, although I do have to tell you that I remember the one time you yelled at me, and I'll tell people all the time, you had me, we're in the corner of a bar, practically spitting at me, Molly, I've got 2 words for you, be famous. And I was like, well, okay, I'll be famous. It was just, I kind of get it. You're sort of like, I was like, okay, I'm not denying this. This is what I need to do. So I don't know. Is that what you did with your top CEOs for decades?
No, the higher up people are, the worse I am. They're adults. They're not children. They're adults. They're not hiring me to sit there and smile. They want to hear what I think, right? You don't have to agree with me. It's feed forward. But yeah, I do give you my opinion. And this is one that I said it's hard to argue with. What happens is we get lost. We get lost in proving how smart we are, proving how right we are. All of this nonsense, we just get lost and we forget, what am I here for? Why am I doing this? Say it skillfully is about making a positive difference in the world. It's not about proving you're the smartest person in the room. And this is hard. Why is it so hard? Look, all the people I coach are brilliant people. They went to school. What grades did they make? A, over and over. A. What did they do their entire lives? They proved how smart they were over and over and over again. That's what they got reinforced for, proving they were smart. It's hard to stop. It is very hard. And that's a challenge of leadership. Quit doing that.
Yeah, this gets to and I talked about it yesterday with the group, the what got you here doesn't get you there. And it's really hard to have, and someone made a comment about humility, to have the humility to realize that what I did that worked yesterday or the last decade isn't what gets me to the next step. And having people who care enough to sit you down and look you in the face with a lot of love, or maybe not, and say, hey, this is not going to go well if you don't let go of that and try something new. And, I think a lot of folks think about the perfect word said the perfect way. And I would offer that one's intention, that you want to help them, that you really are here not to make me look fabulous and to you not look fabulous. That energy people really feel.
Yeah, I think people do want to help. It's frightening for people, though. Power is power. And our ancestors do not have a great history of saying it skillfully to the boss. In other words, you disagree with the king, what happened to you? You be gone. You be gone. Well, that's the way it was for a lot of centuries. So we're talking about a lot of cultural baggage there about challenging upper management. You be gone. So it's important 2 ways. One, understand how to do it. Another thing I'd like to talk about, though, is a sense of humanity. You see, I've been doing a lot of research with John Byrne and Pino Audia about young people today. And a lot of it relates to our book that Say It Skillfully. That is this. A lot of young people are basically feeling kind of bitter and it's not fair. And why aren't I getting ahead? And they're kind of waiting for somebody to take care of them. And, one of the problems in the new world is kids have been brought up with one mentality: show me how to make an A. Now, I've looked at teaching evaluations from many people. The number one critique of teachers today, he didn't tell me how to make an A. Well, then they go to the real world, right? And they're waiting for the boss to tell them how to make an A. Well, the boss may not understand how to make an A. The boss may be as lost as you. So in the new world, they need to learn how to communicate and have a dialogue that you always talk about, as opposed to sit there and wait for an order. And the boss is going, look, I can't sit there and tell you how to do your job every 5 minutes. I'm not going to tell you how to make an A here. This
Yeah.
is not school anymore. Now we're in a place called the real world, and it's a great transition. And seeing the boss as a human being, realizing it's not a robot you're dealing with. They have family, they have values, they have personal agendas, and you always sell to the needs of the person you're talking to, not to your
Yeah.
needs. One of the worst things that young people do is they come in, I need this promotion. Why? I need money. No, that does not work. The worst sales technique in the world is you need to give me this money because I need the money. No, that does never works. So you always sell to the other person's needs, not your needs. And say it skillfully is really about understanding this whole process of how do I focus on your needs? How do I treat you with respect as an adult so that I'm here and I'm going to make a positive difference? And conversely, I like it. We also talk about this. When do I not do this? There are times you're going to be working in the military today. There are times when you got to salute the flag.
Mhm.
The decision has been made and you got to salute the flag. That's okay too.
Yeah.
Then the dialogue shifts. It's not should we do this, it's how can we make this work best.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing out this collaborative part of communication because I think so often it feels one-sided, and I understand that. And so, I have to tell folks that my favorite line in the book from you is when you say, "Look, if the other person is not interested in listening to anyone, even you, right? Like you gotta let it go, and we're good, but we're not that good."
Right.
So I think that folks have to really make that call, and if you're genuinely in a place that doesn't value what anyone, even you, says, there's a bigger question. And so
Well,
I just want to encourage folks on that.
this is a wonderful point you're making because I also see in my research with younger people today some of that, right? Oh, they don't listen. It's not fair. Okay, that's fine. I'm not naive. And so you say, well, just leave. Well, okay, maybe leave is not that easy. On the other hand, work on your exit strategy. Study, learn new things, study other companies. You may not be able to leave this week, but don't just get stuck there for the next 5 years feeling miserable. So,
Yeah.
Molly, you've got a great point. Very important to make this mutual responsibility. You're responsible for your life here. And if you're in the wrong situation, you're miserable, there is no amount of money in the long term that's going to be worth it.
Yeah. And this came up yesterday. We were talking about the state. You said most people aren't really doing what they're doing.
Hmm.
And let's unpack that a little bit because one of the things that I feel very blessed and grateful for is I feel like, and it's been work to get to a place where I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to be doing it, that it's completely, integrated. And, you had some pretty big thoughts yesterday. Maybe share those with the
Yeah, well, it's
audience.
interesting. Existential philosopher John Paul Sartre, and he wrote a book. And in one of his books, he talks about the waiter. And he said, well, the waiter's smile is just a little too forced, it's a little too stiff. He goes on to describe the waiter, and he said, this is a waiter who's another person pretending to be a waiter. That's so much of life. I mean, I live here in Nashville. What percent of people are waiters? They're all songwriters or something. Well, they may be a songwriter, but you know what? They got plates and they're taking orders. They're a waiter. Well, the point is, people who are great at what they're doing are doing what they're doing. They're a waiter. If you eat in a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Paris, I can guarantee you that waiter is a waiter. That waiter is not somebody pretending to be a waiter. And by the way, the maitre d' is a maitre d', the chef is a chef. Everybody there is a professional. They're doing what they're doing. They're really doing their job. They're not pretending to do it. That is them. Well, to the degree that you can be in a position in life where you actually do the work, look at the great leaders you've met. Our friend Alan Mulally, who played a large part in the book, he wasn't pretending to be a CEO. He wasn't pretending to be a leader. That's him. I've known him for 30 years. He is who he is. Frances Hesselbein, that's her, right? That is who these people are. They are not pretending to be something. Great people in any field are doing what they're doing. They're in that role. Now, it doesn't mean it takes over their identity. On the other hand, when they're there, they are there. One of our great friends, Hubert Joly, who really is a positive contributor as well. Hubert was the CEO of Best Buy, and then he left, and he's had a fantastic career since. He's had a fantastic career. He's a teacher. I'm so proud of him. He's happy. He is happily married, thanks to me, of course, who did fix him up. But anyway, he's got a great life. And one of the reasons he has a great life is he was asked, how do you make this transition? He said, that job title is not my identity as a human being. So when he was in that job, he was in that job, but now he's not in that job. Now he's a professor, he's a coach, he's doing great work. He's not being a phony. He is doing that, though. And his point was well taken. That is not my identity as a human being. So be who you are when you're there.
Yeah. So folks, this is big. And because, and we've talked about this, I want my friends, family, I want people to be happy. And that is something that we all own. And yes, we can be happy now, which I think is absolutely a great mantra. But when we think about how we contribute, what brings us joy, where we find meaning, that evolves. And I think earlier in career, you're solving other people's problems, which is great. You're brought in, know why you're paid, right? And then do what you need to get paid. But over time.
And by the way, your point is so well taken. Early in your career, you're often paid for being smart.
Totally.
When you're young. But when you get promoted, new world.
New world. And I think that new world is, because I realize this, because when you have the ability to potentially do a lot of things for people, they're happy because you're solving their problem. Mm-hmm. And I remember a point in time, like, okay, wait a second. Like, I know I can do a lot. What moves me? And I think there's a process for people to embrace in the getting to know me for who I am and the impact we want to have in the world. And this notion of serving, which is, to serve is to live, as Francis said. So when you can get to that, it's so joyful. And that, I guess it's still work, but there's a joy about the work. So I think about, you helped Gary with refirement or, rewirement, not retirement. It's such a privilege to have work that you feel is meaningful, makes a difference, that helps me grow, helps others grow. So I just think for folks out there, it's great to do the chats with folks. What do they think of you? Where do where do they see your strengths? Be curious so that you can invent and create and craft a path that really lights you up. Because I think, look at you, you're going strong. You've retired, I don't know how many times since I've known you, right? You're not retired. We all know that. So, I think there's a lot of creativity that we could go out.
Now I'm only soon to be 77. So, I'm still...
You got a lot of headroom. And I do have to say, one thing I've also really admired about you is you follow your own advice. Lots of times it's easy for people to say things, but they don't really do it. But you've constantly said to me, sometimes people stay around a little longer than maybe is great. And you've kind of deliberately pulled yourself out. Although the fake retirement, we're all onto that now. So, what would you say when you've helped people in this pivoting? When you're doing coaching and someone's like, hey, with something else, I'm just curious what kind of advice you have, because I think our listeners might enjoy some strategies to help them expand their horizons.
And a lot of our LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. So I have 1.6 million followers on LinkedIn. And I had last year alone, 25 million people viewed my LinkedIn posts. So, I love LinkedIn, and I'm pretty familiar with the audience. A lot of our audiences are professionals, and a lot of them are living in a state of increasingly almost constant transition. So I think your question is not just important, it's more important today than it has ever been. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people is when you go into a transition mode, you are in sales. Back to say it skillfully. That's what you're doing. And you are the product. You are in sales. You are the product. You can't expect some long-term job security for the next 20 years. Probably not going to happen. You need to be able to present yourself in a positive way. And you need to learn how to, your language, say it skillfully. That's going to be your job. And by the way, the other people competing for those jobs, those promotions, they're probably close to as good as you are. Yeah. And by the way, this doesn't stop. I do a lot of transitions for former CEOs. Now, you might say it's easy for them to get work. It's easier and it's harder. They can get a job, but they don't want to get a job. They want to do something meaningful. They don't do something trivial. What I tell them is, let go of your ego. You were a CEO. Don't sit there and say, I don't need the money. That just annoys people. Everybody knows how much money you have. Don't do that. You're in sales. If you want the job, you're in sales. You treat them with respect. You sell to their needs. And by the way, if you're better than that, don't do the interview. Get over yourself. Well, it's important because they are in sales. And by the way, I tell them everyone who's competing for that job you're competing for is just about as good as you are. You may think you're a big deal. Everybody competing for this job is a big deal.
Yeah, I think this is when I think about young people going into college admissions, and the fact of the matter is, it's just an overabundance of folks who are qualified.
Oh, yeah.
The end. And I so I really want to encourage folks this notion of sense of self, of honoring yourself for who you are.
Right.
You're a good person. We have to own that narrative. That's the self-talk, saying it to myself. Because if you give yourself the opportunity to kind of feel bad about yourself, you just kind of go downward spiral. Is not pretty, right? And it's we don't want to be delusional about our talents. I'm not encouraging that at all, but recognize that sometimes it's not about fair. I mean, I was at Cornell and we were looking at some of the admissions kids, and it was just like, it was unbelievable, right? So there's a lot of luck, and it's not to be mad about or over glad about. It just is. And so I think, to your point, you've helped me control, influence and control what you can, but you have to let go of the stuff that really is out of your domain. That's it. Yeah.
Let me talk about one thing about letting go that's particularly important for our audience right now, because I have feedback from thousands of people. Have done surveys. I've read them. I'm pretty familiar with my audience, and I'm pretty familiar with my LinkedIn audience. Let me describe a typical people who are listening to us right now. They are typically, well, at least younger than me. They're professionals or leaders, maybe HR people or coaches. They're ambitious. They want to get ahead. They're driven to achieve, and typically too hard on themselves. They're too hard on themselves. They're too self-critical, and they need to learn to let go of the past, as opposed to doing this about their previous mistakes. A lot of my most popular LinkedIn posts are things like, forgive yourself for being human. Just forgive yourself for being human. You're a human being. Now, we're not saying you don't work. I work, you work. On the other hand, you're a human. Forgive yourself. Forgive other people for being who they are. Forgive yourself for expecting them to be somebody else, and forgive yourself for just being human. Every day you wake up and start over. It's okay. You made mistakes yesterday. That's fine. Let go. For many people, the hardest thing to let go of is their own past. Now, I did a fascinating survey. Who is harder on you, your boss or yourself? Oh, it was 4-1. I'm harder on myself than my boss is. I wouldn't be bragging about that too much.
Yeah, I mean, I use this do you want to be your best friend, or you want to be your worst enemy?
That's
and
it.
and I do see, because for the perfectionist types, out there, it's a security blanket. I keep going for it. I keep, kind of berating myself. I'll be better. And there can be some of that, but it's max 20%. If you can be, oh my God, what did I do right? Let me do more of what I did right. What did I learn from that? I mean, I really learned this from you, Marshall, because you were like, wow, so hard on yourself. I mean, I was like, why is he saying that? I'm like, well, because I had no self-awareness that was the inner conversation Molly was having on
Right.
Molly, right? And there are times for it. I'm not saying that we should, again, give ourselves a hall pass. Well, maybe it's not deserved, but I think that
Now,
it's
Molly,
a bad habit.
I've noticed now that's 3 times you've used the qualifier about, I'm not saying you to give yourself a hall pass. My concern of anyone listening on the hall pass problem is 0. They're not going to give themselves a hall pass. I'm not concerned about that. If they weren't hyperachievers, they would not be listening to us right now. What percent of all human beings read a book? Small. What percent are listening to this? Small. What percent are trying to get ahead? Small. Yeah, the hall pass is not a concern. You don't have to keep apologizing for that. I am not concerned anybody is going to not achieve enough because of me or not going to be compulsive enough. I know my readers. That is not my readers. These people are hard workers. They are driven to achieve. That's not going to stop. And that's a good thing. It's all good. That's not going to go away. The key is, though, don't do this. Now, let me tell you one thing that I've found that does work. A lot of our listeners are right now are readers. They might have, say, kids or people they love. So one of the guys I coached, just a great human being, but was never that happy. He had 2 kids. I said, you want your kids to be happy? He said, there's nothing more important in the world than my kids being happy. Nothing. And he was serious. I said, do you believe in leadership by example? He said, of course. I said, okay, Daddy, you be happy. You be happy. You want your kids to be happy? Let them see you be happy. Kids see you be miserable. What kind of role model are you?
Yeah, that's transformation. And I think I've heard folks talk about, oh, culture change takes a long time. There's no transformation, but I absolutely believe there is. And when people at the top decide, hey, we want to do this, we'll own this, and we want to create a new way of being, it can be overnight.
And by the way, our good friend Alan Mulally had a great saying when it's CL Ford, when I frown, the stock price goes down. That is so true. And I'll give you a more deeper example. I'm a volunteer coach for the head of St. Jude's Children's Hospital and Rady Children's Hospital. And one of the doctors I coached, he used to go home and cry every night. First 2 years of resident, he cried every night. He had to learn he can't do that. And working at St. Jude's, they taught me a wonderful lesson. When you see that little kid that's dying, you don't cry. You don't act miserable. You smile and you try to make the kid happy. You don't sit there and cry, because you start crying and acting miserable. That is the worst thing you can do for that kid.
Yeah.
You make the kid feel sad.
Yeah, this gets to one of the key points of in the book. We talk about authenticity, and people think, well, I'm authentically this. And we qualified it and said, you're authentically who you need to be to best serve that situation, that person, that team. And that's leadership, because it may not be your feeling, but you're like, this is who I need to be to take people to a better place.
Yeah, and back to being who you are and authenticity. When you're the waiter, be the waiter. When you're the flight attendant, be the flight attendant. You're the leader, be the leader. So, you're in this position. You have chosen to be in this position. One thing I was asked, do you cash the check at the end of the month? You don't want to do it? Don't cash the check. You cash the check. Do that job.
Yeah, I hope people are thinking about their choices. And I think part of, I think it can be easy to go along and then a year goes by and 5 years goes by and 10 years goes by, Marshall. And right. I think another thing of many that I've learned from you is your reinvention, your thirst to be curious and stay out in front. I mean, you've got more skills in Canva. Your AI skills are ahead of me technically, right? So I do want to offer folks.
Look at LinkedIn. I've had 3 different people call me and say, I'd like to hire the person who does all your LinkedIn work, right? Well, I tell them you can't afford it because I'm the person. I do it all myself.
Yeah.
Now I have AI to help me, but I do the whole thing. All those pictures I do them all.
Yeah. I think this is a thing that I really want to help folks embrace is I think it can be easy to look at folks who are successful and, they worked hard at a time, but now they're coasting. But I feel like you're modeling for us just digging in, figuring it out, making new mistakes, having it all be new. And I just want to offer for folks, it's just that never gets old. And if you can do that, I think it keeps you really young.
Hey, one of my big projects now is MarshallGoldsmith.ai. I want everybody to visit MarshallGoldsmith.ai and ask questions. Yeah. And it now can answer in, I believe, 32 languages. Ultimately, you're going to be able to have a dialogue with it. You could just say some bald guy with a white beard here and a green polo shirt on, and you'll be able to talk to this fellow and have a dialogue. That's coming.
Yeah, it is coming. And it's really great because it helps, I think, share a lot of what you offer is very evergreen support for folks. And well, we're at the bottom of our hour, and I just can't thank you enough, Marshall, for a really exciting time. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We want you to know that we're cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said. And when you say it skillfully, relationships strengthen, performance improves, and everyone wins. And we'll see you soon. Take good care. Ciao.